Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tatho Jaya Mudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. So we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 2, entitled Maharaj Nimi Meets the Nine Yogendras, Text 39. Shinvan Subhadra Nirathan Gopane Janmani Karmani Chayani Loke Gitani Namani Tada Arthakani Gayan Vilajo Vicharet Asanga Shinvan Subhadra Nirathan Gopane Janmani Karmani Chayani Loke Gilani Namani Tadarthakani Gayan Vilajo Vichareda Sangha Shinvan Subhadrani Rathan Gopane Janmani Karmani Chayani Loke Gitani Namani Tadarthakani Gayan Vilajo Vichareda Sangha Sakani Kaya Galacho Tare Galaja Mat Shiman Sunaja Manjan Pane Janmani Karmani Chayani Loke Gitani Namani Tadarthakani Gaya Ranjo Vicharena San Matajis Shinvan Subhadrani Rathan Gopane Shinvani Karmani Chayani Loke Gitani Namani Tadarthakani Gayan Vilajo Vichareda Sangha Shinvan Subhadrani Rathan Gopane Janmani Karmani Chayani Loke Gitani Namani Tadarthakani Shinvan, hearing. Subhadrani, all auspicious. Ratha Angapane, of the Supreme Lord, who holds a chariot wheel in his hand, in his pastime of fighting with grandfather Bhishma. Janmani, the appearances. Karmani, activities. Cha, and. Yani, which. Loke, in this world. Gitani, are chanted. Namani, names. Tadarthakani, signifying these appearances and activities. Gayan, singing. Villager, free from embarrassment. Vicharet, one should wander. Asanga, without material association. Translation. An intelligent person who has controlled his mind and conquered fear should give up all attachment to material objects such as wife, family and nation, and should wander freely without embarrassment, hearing and chanting the holy names of the Lord, the bearer of the chariot wheel. The holy names of Krishna are all auspicious because they describe his transcendental birth and activities, which he performs within this world for the salvation of the conditioned souls. Thus the holy names of the Lord are sung throughout the world. So, purport. Translation and purport are by the humble disciples of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. This is the second part of the purport. It's a bit long one, so yesterday half of it was read and today I am reading the other half. Srila Jiva Goswami has emphasized Yani Shastra Avara Sat Parampara Dwara Cha Loke Gitani Janmani Karmani Cha Tani Shinvan Gayams Cha. If one wants to be successful in chanting and hearing the holy name of the Lord, one must adopt the process as it is coming down in the Sat Parampara, the transcendental disciplic succession. And the Sat Parampara can be identified by reference to bona fide Vedic scriptures. Contrary to the opinion of uninformed critics, the followers of Krishna consciousness are not mindless or fanatical. They intelligently follow the system of checks and balances called Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. That is, one must accept a bona fide spiritual master who must in turn be confirmed by the opinion of great saintly persons and reveal scriptures. If one accepts a bona fide spiritual master, follows the example of great saintly persons and becomes conversant with authorized literature such as Bhagavad Gita as it is and Srimad Bhagavatam, one's program of chanting the holy names of the Lord and hearing about the Lord's pastimes will be completely successful. As Krishna states in Bhagavad Gita 4.9, Janma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tattvataha taktva deham punar janma naiti mamiti so Arjuna. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in the material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has stated that throughout the world, the Supreme Lord is known by many names, some of them expressed in vernacular language, but any name used to indicate the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is one without a second, beyond the influence of material nature, can be accepted as a holy name of God, according to this verse. That is indicated by the word loke. One should not misinterpret the word vicharet, which means one should wander, to mean that while chanting the holy names of Krishna, one may go anywhere or engage in any activity without discrimination. Therefore it is stated, vicharet asanga. One may wander freely, but at the same time one must strictly avoid the association of those who are not interested in Krishna consciousness or who are engaged in sinful life. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has stated, Asat Sanga Tyaga, a Vaishnava Acharya. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela 22.87. A Vaishnava is known by his complete avoidance of all mundane association. If in the course of traveling and chanting the glories of the Lord, a Vaishnava preacher finds a submissive non-devotee who is willing to hear about Krishna, the preacher will always give his merciful association to such a person. But a Vaishnava should strictly avoid those who are not interested in hearing about Krishna. According to Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, those who do not engage in hearing the astonishing pastimes and holy names of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and who do not relish the Lord's pastimes are simply executing mundane, illusory activities or indulging in false materialistic renunciation. Frustrated living entities sometimes take to dry impersonalism and avoid the descriptions of the Supreme Lord's eternal name, form, qualities, entourage, and pastimes. But if one gains the association of a pure devotee, one gives up the path of dry, speculative argument and becomes situated on the actual Vedic path of devotional service to the Lord. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that the word Dvaita or duality expresses the false understanding that some object has a substantial existence independent of Krishna. The Mayavad conception of Advaita, which lacks any spiritual distinctions, is simply another manifestation of the mind's function of acceptance and rejection. The eternal appearance and pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead never contradict the concept of Advaya Gnana or transcendental knowledge beyond duality. Om Ajnantimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurun Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsya Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Aptakanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyasya Kripa Sindhuva Evasya Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So, just before we begin our lecture today, I just wanted to, I was asked to give a 1 minute background to this very beautiful appearance of Gopalji. As most of you know that during this Chandan Yatra of 21 days, every single day, these wonderful devotees, many devotees, led by the devotees in the DT department, they come and have a different, very creative but very authorized appearances of Gopalji. So today, if you see this, Gopalji is carrying, so it says Patram Phalam Gopalji. It is linked to the wonderful pastime in Krishna Leela when Krishna is just a little small child. He's in Vrindavan, and when one day one fruit seller fruit vendor comes to Nand Maharaj's house and just asking, okay, does anyone want any fruit? So that time the custom was that they would barter. There was no question, there was no money like we have notes of, now you have 2000 rupees and 500 rupees and 10 rupees notes. So they would give some grain and exchange. So Krishna was in the house, he was just a small child, he was barely walking that time. So he took some grains in his hand. The custom was to exchange some grain. Now he's just a baby, so how much grain can he hold? Nevertheless, he took some grain and went running out. On the way, he spilled a lot of the grain that was in his hand. So what he had was just a few grains left in his hand, and he gave that to the fruit vendor. So the fruit vendor, but she was so captivated by his beauty, and so even though she got barely nothing, but she gave very generously all the fruits that she had. So this lady that is shown at the bottom of the just below the altar of Gopalji, that is the fruit vendor, and so she gives the fruits just spontaneously and from her heart, symbolizing the way we should be giving our whatever we have to Krishna, our mind, our intelligence, our consciousness, our time, our energy, our money. So not necessarily in that order, but everything that we have. So, and what Krishna did was that miraculously she had all whatever fruits were there that she gave, but instead of that the whole basket was full of jewels. So this is what this has been a very beautiful creation by our devotees here. So today in the purport we have some very important, wonderful lessons for us. Oftentimes, we may be questioned, or we are questioned actually, that you are following this bhakti process, and it is it's very sentimental. You feel nice, and sometimes people feel that bhakti is for the less intelligent, and that there is no solid scientific backing behind it. So Srila Prabhupada actually established this very strongly, that actually this movement, the Vaishnava movement, is actually the whole spiritual process, as a matter of fact, is a scientific process. And one of the key factors, what do they mean by science? When they have the experiment, they have a hypothesis, they experiment, and then they have to check and cross-check and establish that with some evidence. So if you go to see in spirituality, it has the same context, but it is in a different way, in the sense that, as is mentioned in the purport, that we have this the most protective triangle of Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. Prabhupada often said this also, that Guru, Sadhu and Shastra are, if all the three are in consonance, if all the three are saying the same things, then we know that we are on the right path. So the Guru is our immediate Guru. We may have an initiated Guru, but if not, Prabhupada is eternally all of he is our Shiksha Guru. So we have the Guru, but we also have the Acharyas who have been saying the same things, and Prabhupada always mentioned that he is just a messenger, he is only following what his Guru Maharaj said. From the first day that he established ISKCON to the last day of his life, his only motive was to give back to his Guru Maharaj, try to serve his Guru Maharaj in line of disciplic succession. And the Shastras is the scriptures. So the bona fide scriptures, if they are really being brought out by all the sadhus, that is so many previous acharyas, the great saints, and we have so many. When we see that when Srila Prabhupada wrote his commentaries and his various scriptures, almost 80 books, he had more than 12, 13 authors whom he used the commentary from. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Jiva Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, Madhvacharya, Sridhar Swami, B. Raghav Goswami, Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, like that. He used all of them. You can see he constantly quotes them. So, which means that he is very loudly proclaimed that we are not actually creating something new. It is not our concoction, and as a matter of fact, I would like to read this. When he wrote the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is considered the highest form of spiritual literature. So the introduction to the first canto of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, this is what Srila Prabhupada wrote. And considering that this will be for eternity, that means for thousands and thousands of years, people will be reading this, and they're going to read the introduction before they read the book. What Prabhupada said, one who is devoid of... Since we belong to this chain of disciplic succession from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this edition of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita will contain nothing newly manufactured by our tiny brains, but only remnants of the foodstuff originally eaten by the Lord Himself. It is not the arrogant scholarship of a mental speculator, but a sincere effort to serve the order of a superior authority whose service is the life and soul of this humble effort. So, here we see that Srila Prabhupada loudly, transparently, very boldly, very clearly laid it down for literally, there will be billions of people who will read this over the next hundreds of centuries. So he wanted to establish with the principle of this Guru Sadhu Shastra that he is also following that, and this gives us great confidence. It gives us great reassurance, reaffirmation, because oftentimes we don't have much intelligence, really. But whatever intelligence we have, we can use to try to understand initially, and this is the check and balance that we have. That otherwise we could get led astray into something which just appeals to us. We have various emotions, and we feel extremely pleased at something we hear. We see something which is someone who is very eloquent, speaks extremely nicely, very softly, smoothly, piercing eyes, moves our heart for some time. But so maybe bona fide, maybe not. But is it something that is being backed by Shastras? Is it something that you have heard from the previous Acharyas? Or is it just somebody who's come from out of the blue? And so therefore this Guru Sadhu and Shastra is a scientific established approach to check and balance. And we should not miss that. In fact, I can give an example that many years ago there was a time when we were not in ISKCON for some time, and His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj, when it came to the time that we were in ISKCON, invited us and said, come back. So he was here right in this temple. He was asking many devotees that what should we do, what is your opinion? So of course almost all said we would be happy to, and whatever you decide. But there was a very important question asked. Said that Maharaj, all this time, for many years we were following him, we were hearing him. So therefore many of our spiritual lives were molded by his association. So he said, now we were used to only hearing from you, and then now suddenly ISKCON is a whole big, it's not impersonal, but it is invisible, giant, worldwide movement. And then the authority of ISKCON is not just one person, but it is the governing body commissioner. There are about 35 great sadhus who are on that board. So you will be just one of them, and how will we go ahead? So he made this very important statement, which I remember. He said that I welcome it, I embrace it, because, and it is for your benefit. Say, how do you know that if I am saying something which is, just because you believe me, I may say something, but I have these various sadhus who are who are completely committed to Prabhupada, and we may have different styles, different backgrounds, different cultures also sometimes, different, but in philosophy we are the same. However, if someone has different, so if at all someone is going astray, then we have a check and balance already established within the ISKCON organization, which all of you should be extremely reassured with. So that was a transparent statement by a sadhu who gave us the confidence, and this is the same line that we have to, while we would be extremely, we have a loyalty, we would feel extremely grateful, and we should surrender our lives to such people who appeal to us and who are taking all our responsibility. But it is also enhancing our loyalty, because we hear this, that and we also have our ability to read, we have to understand from the scriptures, and then we can back it. So Jiva Goswami also talks about the Sad Parampara, and in Prabhupada's early days, Prabhupada mentioned directly that I am coming from a disciplic succession. I am not just concocting something. And he came from the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. So it is a great lineage actually which links up to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and also to Krishna himself. So Lord Brahma is actually one of the four Vaishnava Sampradayas. This one leads right up to Brahma, to Madhvacharya, and the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, that is what we are known as. And in his early days, there were a few American religious scholars, very learned scholars, who actually immediately appreciated. So Srila Prabhupada made an effort to go to them, and he went to several people because it was a new movement. You have to understand, he went there. We know the story. He went there, he just comes to the shore of Boston. He is completely penniless practically, he has no money, and he stays at someone's home, and then he just starts preaching. And then he comes to New York, he's sitting under a tree and he chants. So how people start coming, and the kind of people who are coming are definitely not conventional or conformist, to say the least. So how does that actually give confidence to the general world, which is first of all not at all familiar to this kind of Eastern philosophy, and then that too to the crowd which is around him. So and particularly because they saw that many of them had the habit of drugs and so on. But nevertheless, he went to them, and over time he used to meet them, debate with them, and several of them came round to understanding that over years how he has been creating this movement, and about Prabhupada himself and his own life, and so many things about the Sampradaya. And they of course were scholars. So Dr. Harvey Cox was one of the early ones. He was from the Harvard Divinity School. So they in many of his Prabhupada's books, you will see the credits. I mean, when they have been also giving their personal commitment and speaking very nicely about Prabhupada and saying so publicly, because they wanted to back him. They saw that here's a genuine sadhu. So Dr. Harvey Cox was one of the early ones who understood that Prabhupada came through a lineage from a parampara. And he also said that Prabhupada is, though there are thousands, he's one of thousands of preachers, because many people were preaching in different languages, different cultures. He's one of thousands of preachers, but among the thousands, he is actually one in a million. So, he was among the early ones who understood the greatness of this personality, who was, though he was one particularly, he called this one particularly effective link in the chain of disciplic succession. Dr. Harvey Cox made it that he said that he is actually, there are many chains, in a whole chain, but this chain was particularly effective because it was set up by Krishna for Prabhupada to go and on the order of his guru and on the order of his Param Guru. Several of them had actually given a support system by which Prabhupada actually went overseas, and then the rest is history. But we should also understand that any Vaishnava, this is what Bhagavatam says, that any Vaishnava who has no extraordinary achievement, who may not even have perfected his life, who doesn't have perfect love for Krishna, even he is a very important person. So somebody who is sincerely following, and Bhagavatam says that even if mystic yogis and others who may have great supernatural powers, but if they are not coming through an authorized devotional service, then they don't have really the ability to open the path back to Godhead. which even a sincere Vaishnav can help others really open the path for that fortunate soul to go back. So therefore the Vaishnavas are very important to human society, and but they are also very rare. The Bhagavad Gita says that Samahatma Sudurlabha, so they are very, very rare to find. So it is important from this verse to understand that when we talk of Parampara, which we are talking of several lines of gurus coming through different centuries, and how it gives us confidence, because we do not understand the importance really. We will never understand the importance of what Srila Prabhupada represents. And also how fortunate we are that sometimes when we are too familiar, then we take things, we just cannot see if you're too close to a mountain, you cannot really see the size. If you're too close to an object, you cannot understand the dimensions of that fully. Only when you're at a distance. So it has happened in the past, in the history of mankind also, that those who were very close, very, very few people would know. But then their glories are sung. Like take Jesus Christ, for instance. I mean, he was crucified. So many people were against him when he was on this planet. But over centuries, then his greatness was revealed. Similarly, even Madhvacharya, Ramanujacharya, so many other great saints, there were only a few people in those days who really understood. But the number of people who realized over centuries and are continuing to grow, that is one of the reasons that, one of the proofs that this is eternal and the glories will always be sung. So keeping that in mind, I just wanted to bring up some points about what we actually are, how fortunate we are, and how we are connected to Srila Prabhupada by some almost magical way. And that Prabhupada is actually always a representative of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Krishna via his gurus. First is that he's always teaching he always mentioned continuously that the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is the Yoga Dharma. This is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, and all the Acharyas said that for Kali Yuga, this is an ideal. So, because we are fortunate, we have the Hare Krishna Mahamantra and we take it. It doesn't mean that others were taking other mantras. If they're doing it genuinely, then that is also wonderful. Krishna has so many names, millions of names. But if we have got the Mahamantra, it is like then and if we are following Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Krishna in this sampradaya, we should take it as it is. So so Prabhupada introduced this. Then he also was always talking fundamentally of the philosophy of Radha and Krishna and the conjugal affairs, though he never elaborated much on the details in the 10th canto, because most of his followers he said, you are not on that level. We need to know. However, we can't be completely meditating on that because we are still sadhana bhaktas. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also had instructed his disciples. This was his main instructions to the 6 Goswamis, that to write books and to distribute. And that's what Prabhupada took up also, that he took the science of Krishna consciousness all over, and his Guru, Param Guru and others also who told him to go overseas, he did that primarily to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. And also there were many predictions and prophecies which also supported this, the Parampara and the presence of Prabhupada. For instance, in the Bhagavatam 10th canto, the personified Vedas, in their prayers to the Lord, they also appeal to the mercy of the Lord, that please come and show your mercy to the living entities in this who are in Maya. And they say that your most important, you have so many qualities, but your most important quality is compassion. So please empower your surrendered souls to really help the other suffering souls. And Srila Prabhupada is one of these empowered, surrendered devotees. Also in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, it is mentioned that, it was already mentioned, this came again 500 years ago, that by Vrindavan Das Thakur, that in every town and village, Krishna says, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that in every town and village my name will be Krishna's name will be sung and all over the world. And now we are seeing this, that who could have imagined before he went to the US that this would be sung in the bylanes and villages and the small streets of far off places, somewhere in Australia, and somewhere in Africa, and somewhere everywhere it is being spread. Then also his Guru, Prabhupada's Guru Maharaj, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Guru Maharaj, his father actually, who was a Shiksha Guru, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, had also predicted that someday all the people of all nationalities, and this is, he said, in the late 1800s, so we're talking of almost 130-40 years ago. He said that all the people of all the nationalities someday will actually come to Mayapur and hold hands together and actually sing out loud the glories of Gaur Hari and chant loudly. We are actually seeing them, and it literally happens in Mayapur, but it's also happening in so many other towns. The people from various backgrounds, various cultures and countries are coming together. Also, Bhaktivinoda Thakur also had predicted that someday a great Acharya will come who will propagate the holy name all over the world. And he said this again in the late 1800s. And we see that this prediction came through his son Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who instructed his disciple Prabhupada to go and do the same. Then Prabhupada's own birth, when he was born, the astrologer also had predicted that, he said that looking at his astrology charts, I wish we had such astrologers, but amazing that he said that this boy will actually spread, he will go over, he'll build 100 temples all over the world. He'll go overseas and build 100 temples. Now, this was in 1896. To say that somebody will go overseas was, it really needs a bold person to have said it. Also, in the same year that he was born, in 1896, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's book was actually, and this was the start of the, you can say, the Sankirtan movement in one sense, when the transcendental distribution, the distribution of transcendental knowledge went overseas. His first book that was accepted overseas in the Canadian, in the University of, in one university in Canada, McGill University, also happened to be in 1896, the year that Prabhupada was born. And one of the most important links we know that Prabhupada's own Guru, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, what were his prophetic words when Prabhupada came to meet him first? The first time Prabhupada sees his Guru, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, in 1922, and on the terrace of this Ultadunga junction. So he just puts his head down on the ground, pays obeisances, and when he looks up, with the first words of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was that you are an educated young man. You should take the message of Lord Chaitanya all over the world and preach all over the world. And Prabhupada never forgot that. Though he had come with a very questioning mind, so-called, whether who's this person, let us see. He had never met him. But in that first meeting itself, he got the instruction, he was very much impressed and convinced. And he kept this in his mind, that though it was in 1922 he heard it, he meditated on it, and then by 1935 end, when his Guru Maharaj left this planet, he knew that this was a major instruction, the most important. So for the next 30 years, he was actually planning. People sometimes say that, well, what happened suddenly in 1965? Did he just wake up and he feel, okay, let me go? No, it was actually, everything was set in such a way that he made several plans to go there. And he made many efforts here. Some of the efforts did not succeed. But this was always at the back of his mind, that he has to go overseas. And his Guru also, not just his first instruction, but during those 14 years that he had time to, he was very close to his Guru in one sense, though he did not meet him that often. So he was a Grihastha. Prabhupada was a Grihastha, so he was staying outside the temple. So at that time, the Bombay branch of the Gaudiya Mutt, which is not far from here, it's just a 5-minute walk. Now it is not there, they moved to Bandra. But at that time in Bombay, the devotees there, everyone was very impressed with this Abhay Charande, who was very serious, scholarly, and though he was working outside, but he was also helping the temple. So they were requesting the Guru Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur to ask him to move into the temple. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said that just let him be. He need not move into the temple with you. Let him be away from you. When the time comes, he will do. He will do when the time comes. And he had full confidence. And there are other books and other who also had said that when Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had predicted, not in predicted, but also mentioned in public that someday one of my disciples will go overseas and spread the holy name. But at the same time, we also need to see how it is not that Prabhupada, he says he's a messenger. Of course, in one sense he is. He's carrying the message of Krishna coming down. But it's not that he is just like a robot, that he comes, he got the message, he took a lecture, gave everyone, and it's not like that. He really, his purity made him actually, because the whole, you have to understand that as Thomas Hopkins, one of the early supporters of Prabhupada, just like Harvey Cox, he was also one of the leading theologists, Indologists, but who understood the Indian philosophy and very impressed with Prabhupada. He said that Prabhupada defied all culture, in fact he bridged all cultural differences by his purports. Because these scriptures were written in a time and place when, and for an audience which was of a completely different cultural milieu. And now we're talking of in the depths of Maya, in the city of, and he's the first city that he started preaching and the first country he started preaching in. You can just imagine. So Prabhupada had to actually literally, he had to think and meditate on how he could interpret in the right way all this. He was going through the various references of 12 Acharyas and put it in a way which is palatable and understandable to an audience which did not even know that there is anything wrong with sense gratification. Saying, what's wrong? And completely alien to this kind of philosophy. So it's incomprehensible to us because we were not there. We don't know what the Western situation was in the 60s. But none of us will ever know what it was like when when Krishna wrote this, when spoke to this to Arjun. What we only have a glimpse of the kind of level of consciousness that was there then. So we have to know that Prabhupada it was not just a parrot-like presentation, but he defied many cultural designations. He was not. You would not fit him into a norm. He had to take many bold steps. For instance, though he was a Vaishnava scholar, which is evident from the so many books that he's written, his lectures, his background, his understanding and his mastery over even the philosophy, yet he did not hesitate to go into day-to-day management of the movement. So it is very rare, you never find this, but he knew that he had to establish it because nobody else knew what to do. So between 1965 and 1970, at least till 1975, 76, he was on a day-to-day basis, managing also. So it was a contradiction. Similarly, he was a sannyasi of the highest order. He took sannyas and he was a very respected sannyasi. At the same time, he really gave so much of not just support but understood how women could actually be integrated in Krishna consciousness. It is for everyone. And for a sannyasi to do this, for engaging them in devotional service and giving them the importance of equal importance was unheard of at that time. So he defied those kind of culture because the cultural designations at that time were very different. So it is something which Prabhupada knew that if this had to spread, it had to spread through families, congregations. Not everyone is going to join the temple. And families and congregation means there has to be an equal understanding within the houses, within the people, within the family members of what this is. It's not that one person, he's not creating a war-like situation. He needs a homogeneity and a great comfort level within the house, which he put emphasis on. Also, he was an Indian and he spoke fluent Hindi, Bengali, Yet he gave all his lectures in English. Even to the audiences who could understand, who were Hindi speaking, he used to speak in English. Why? Because he was establishing the fact that this is a worldwide movement. Of course, he did speak in Hindi many times, but most of his lectures and public speaking was in English, because he was establishing. He was also looking to see that the establishment people, the people who actually made the kind of influences over the world, that they understood the importance, and that happened. Various mayors would meet him, various people, because they were really impressed with Sadhu who lived by his example and talked by his example. It was not that he would say something and act behind differently. And he gave the same message to the communists and the capitalists. In economic systems, if you have two extremes, that time there was a communist system which was, they were dominating, say, Russia, China, and some parts of South America and so on. And then you had the capitalist system, which is really the Western system. So they are different economic systems and they still exist. But Prabhupada never changed the message. The message to both the parties, wherever he went to Russia, Professor Kotovsky, and then he met a couple of people there who came to him, and from there the movement started. And he went to the West. His message was only the same, that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna is the proprietor. Not you in Russia, not you in America, not you in India, or so on. Krishna is the proprietor, ultimately. And we are like in the interim trustees. So this is he wouldn't fit into that cultural milieu. Also, we have to understand these purports. We talked about that purports which really came from commentaries of 12. How did he do it? He rose every single morning at 2 in the morning, every day at that age. And that too, don't think that he was translating and writing 80 books, and plus he was meeting hundreds of people every day, important people, devotees, go for his morning walk. And at that age he started this at the age of 70 up to 81. So he used to sleep only 2 hours a day. But the importance of those 2 hours in the morning, when he got up at 2 o'clock, so 2 to 4, he would sit with his dictaphone and translate. So he was actually talking to Krishna. He was talking to Krishna, and then he shared his conversations with Krishna to the world. That comes through his purports. Prabhupada said that these purports are my devotional ecstasies. So what that means is that it was a feeling which we would not understand, but we have a glimpse of those early hours when everybody is asleep, and then he was in communion with Krishna. He was actually conversing with Krishna, and those conversations actually via his gurus and others, and then he was bringing it to the world through his purports. So we have to understand the criticality of these purports. That's what really establishes our scriptural understanding. Also, the Bhagavad Gita is dedicated to Baldev Vidyabhushan, and also not just, and even his commentaries are taken there. The Chaitanya Charitamrita, also the purports are by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Bhakti Vinod Thakur. And also whatever Prabhupada saw, he saw through the eyes of the scripture. So even when he was any mundane, ordinary things also, he would always link it to this is his vision. Everything he saw Krishna, connection to Krishna. So just some examples that when he was going for a morning walk, and then he was seeing that the sun got, when the clouds were covering the sun, suddenly the sun was not there. So somebody commented that now the sun is gone. So he said, no, he said actually, just like we have, if you want to see God, we need to have the qualification to see God. If you don't have the qualification, we can't see it. Similarly, it is just like, then immediately he pointed, he said, just like how the cloud is covering the sun. So our eyes cannot see the sun because there is a cloud. So if any small thing, he would immediately link it. He went for he used to go for morning walks, and the devotees would take him to all the exotic, nicer places, where there's quiet. And so once he went to a very beautiful lake, so the swans were there. So Prabhupada immediately observed, and he said that our scriptures say that devotees are like swans, and then these clear blue lakes are really Krishna, those who are, it's Krishna's creation, and the crows are like the non-devotees are like crows who would, it's not that somebody puts a tilak becomes a devotee. If you have a mentality, it really depends on that. But if you have a mentality to go for only into the garbage things, things which are negative, which are nothing to connect it to the Lord, then that makes us like have a crow mentality. And those where we are looking at the positive things and looking only towards what Krishna's creation is and how we can integrate our life with him, that is a swan-like mentality. He was walking on the road, and then the path was all full of gravel. Gravel means, these small pebbles. So he would just say that you just see how much, as many pebbles there are, which are countless, millions, because, even just in a 10 square feet, there were thousands, tiny pebbles. So you can imagine on a road how many countless were there. So he's saying living entities are as many as there are pebbles. So like that, he would instruct his, constantly train his disciples also through his own example of linking everything that he saw to Krishna. Once he came under a tree, and this, a big tree, and then there were some bird droppings. So he stopped. So everybody stopped. And then he took his cane and he pointed to this bird droppings. And he said, "What is this?" So the devotees were, they were trying to understand what to interpret, how to put it, So they're saying that there was quite a long pause. And again Krishna Prabhupada, "So what is this?" So they were they think, what is he thinking? So one devotee finds out that, "Prabhupada, this is, kind of bird defecation, some," they were trying to see that something, so Prabhupada said that it only means that the birds have been in this, these birds must have been in this tree for more than 2 weeks. That means even the birds are attached to their apartments. So he was linking that how we get attached to our material things, whatever we have. So if a bird can be attached, if he's staying over 2 weeks, then he thinks that, they are part of the tree and they don't want to leave the tree, they're on the comfort zone. So similarly, the living entity makes the material world their own comfort zone and doesn't want to go out of it. So actually, I would like to end here because we have a very wonderful cultural presentation coming up in a few minutes from the Odisha Adruta group. So in case there are any questions, we can take one or two, because I was told to wind up at 9:45. We have 2-3 minutes. So if you have any questions, otherwise we'll stop here. Hare Krishna, Prabhupada ki jai. Okay. So Granthra Srila Prabhupada, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
I'll be here for 10 minutes.
You can sit here. Okay, minutes. We have chairs there. Actually.
Very nice curve. No.
Hare Krishna. Today morning we have a wonderful program by our very special guests who've come here. And they are the girls from the Adruta Children's Home from Bhubaneswar, Odisha. Some of you may already be familiar with them because they have been visiting us over the last 2 years and have been performing. And for those who don't know about them or haven't seen them, I will just say very briefly that they are girls from the Adruta Children's Home in Bhubaneswar. And this children's home aims to provide a beautiful, congenial, wonderful home for destitute children who have been abandoned, and provides them with love, with devotion, nurturing. And right from a very young age, they are taught all the arts and the skills, given education in our Indian Vedic way. And what they have really excelled in, and what they have now come to perform for us, is the typical, the very devotional Odissi dance of Odisha. And they have been learning this from the time